Hello fellow golfers, welcome to Your Simple Golf Swing. I'm Matt. In today's video, I want to tell you the story about the guy who announced to the world that he had $10,000 that said nobody can out-hit him. Why is it important for you to listen to this story? Why do you even care? Well, I'll tell you why. How many of you get on YouTube and just chase golf tip after golf tip after golf tip, but you never stop and wonder, what's the origin of the swing that this guy is basing all of his golf tips on? How do you know that it's not a flawed swing to begin with? How do you know it's not an inferior swing? How many of these guys tell you what the origin of their swing training method is all about? I want to share with you the story of where the Your Simple Golf Swing methodology came from, and then you can decide for yourself if this is something you want to pursue or if you want to move on to somebody else's swing style. So let's get into the story. The year was 1985. John Andressani, who was the chief editor for golf instruction at Golf Magazine, was sitting at his desk in his office one day when he took a phone call from a guy named Mike Dunaway. Now, Andressani's role at Golf Magazine was to field phone calls from people that would call up and say, hey, I've invented the latest golf gadget that's going to revolutionize golf instruction. Or maybe some guy would call up and say, hey, I was rifling through the attic, I found this old book and I found the key to the golf swing. So he would filter out, the nuts from the gems, if you will. Well, he gets this call from Mike Dunaway, and Mike Dunaway says to him, Mr. Andressani, I'm Mike Dunaway. I'm the longest driver of the golf ball in the world, and I can prove it. Well, Andressani was intrigued. He says, okay, Mr. Dunaway, let's say you are the longest driver of the golf ball in the world. How exactly are you going to prove it? And that's when Mike made this huge boast. He says, I've got $10,000 that I'm willing to bet that nobody can outdrive me, winner take all. So Andressani talked to him for a little bit longer, learned a little bit more about him, and then he went and talked to the chief editor for Golf Magazine as a whole, and they decided, hey, let's meet this guy and see what he's all about. Well, not long after that, they were scheduled to do an outing at Sawgrass with a lot of their primary advertisers and sports writers, and they decided to bring Mike Dunaway out for a long drive demonstration. Well, Dunaway showed up, and they were expecting this guy to show up with some crazy, weird-looking swing with some heavily modified driver, and he just walks up with a persimmon wood driver, and they had, the old wound balls back then, and he tees the ball up right there in front of the whole crowd, and no warm-ups or anything. First swing, crack, just starts cranking, drives down the fairway longer than anybody had ever seen. Andressani was just in shock. Well, the following day, they decided, okay, we're going to take him out, see how this holds up on the golf course. So he and the chief editor, both of which Andressani said at the time in 1985, the tour average was about 250 yards off the tee, and both he and the chief editor could both drive the ball about 250. So they take Mike Dunaway out on the golf course, and he said that they were just astonished. It blew their mind. He said on every par 4 and par 5, Dunaway was out driving them by 75 to 100 yards. This is an 85 using a persimmon driver, okay, an old wooden driver. He even went on to say that on one par 5 in particular, both he and the chief editor hit their drives, smacked a really good drive, and then hit their 3-woods and reached the green in 2. But Mike Dunaway, he hit his drive and then hit a pitching wedge to reach the green in 2. Andressani and his editor decided we've got to put this guy on the cover of our magazine. So in the August edition of the 1985 issue of Golf Magazine, they put on the front cover a picture of Mike Dunaway standing there holding a driver and his right foot on a bag of money with the headline, $10,000 says you can't out-hit me. It ended up becoming their #1 selling issue of all time. After that issue hit the golfing world, ESPN took notice of Mike Dunaway. They had a TV show back then called Tee It Up, where they offered golf tips and they would do demonstration. Well, they brought Mike Dunaway onto their show multiple times, many weeks in a row, where he would do the long drive demonstrations. They would bring challengers on to the show who would try to take that $10,000 away from Dunaway. Nobody was ever able to do it. Some of the famous people that showed up that tried to get that $10,000 from him included Freddie Couples and Lawrence Taylor of the New York Giants, who, for some of you older guys, remember Lawrence Taylor could just cream the ball. Week after week after week, Challenger tried to take that money from Dunaway. Nobody could do it. Later, he hosted a local cable television program back in his home state of Arkansas, where again, contender after contender after contender came on the show and tried to outdrive Dunaway, and nobody could do it. Dunaway did go on to win some long drive championships. In 1990, he won the World Long Drive Championship that was held in Japan. Eli Callaway, the founder of Callaway Golf Equipment, he was so impressed with Mike Dunaway that he hired him on the staff. They used him in the development of the Big Bertha driver, which was one of the first oversized steel drivers that ever hit the market. Instead of using the iron, in 1991, after John Daly won the PGA Championship, he was asked, "John, is there anybody out there that could out-hit you?" And he said, "There's two guys back home that can put it out there further than me, Robbie Wilson and Mike Dunaway." Mike Dunaway and John Daly teamed up many times doing long drive demonstrations at various PGA Tour events. Years after the development of the Callaway Big Bertha driver, Eli Callaway said that Mike Dunaway was his best instructor on the entire Callaway staff. Why is that important? Well, it's important to know that the swing that Mike Dunaway was doing was teachable. He had honed his skills under the tutelage of Mike Austin, and he was able to teach this swing to other people. So that's the story of the brazen golfer who bet the world $10,000 that nobody could out-hit him. Why is it important that I shared this with you? Because I want you to know the origins of the Your Simple Golf Swing method. Whether you want to learn the swing by watching all my YouTube videos, or if you want to learn it quicker by buying my course, either way, at least now you know the origins of the swing that I'm teaching, and all the tips that I'm giving are based on that swing. I hope after watching this video you feel better informed. Have a great day.